Welcome to Picks with the Professor, the podcast where a real statistics professor.
The Manny Rodriguez, Manny Rodriguez to Big Poppy. Man, I can't speak this morning.
Manny Rodriguez.
Ramirez, yeah, I can't.
The tongues. We're leaving this. This is the best intro ever. The whole tongue twister.
I just swung for the fences and missed.
If we had a cold open, this would be the cold open. Right? This is our cold open. Like play the music. Play the music.
Yeah, really.
Gives you sports betting tips. I am Professor Sides. You can follow me on Twitter at Professor Sides. You can follow my tongue twisted friend Jake on Twitter at myfriend_Jake. Today is Monday, April 25th. 2022, and this episode covers all of today's Major League Baseball games. In case you're new here, I built a mathematical model for win probability, and I analyze weather data in order to come up with some plays on totals. I'll make one pick and one pick only on every game played, usually Monday through Saturday. Tried it yesterday with Sunday, and that didn't go well. It doesn't mean I recommend you do the same. I'm just giving you information as to what I like the most or where my head is for each matchup. As I go through the plays, remember there are no locks in gambling, so we'll give you our loves, likes, and leans to help you decide which picks you might want to play and how I recommend scaling your wagers. With that in mind, please understand that good and bad variance will occur. So as much as I'd like to say we'll be profitable each and every day, that is an impossible reality for any gambler. Jake, I tweeted about this. I had some awful one-run game luck lately, and that is just – it's been a – and I talked with Cousin Jared about this. I don't know if you and I talked about this, but it seems like every 3 days is 3 awesome days and then 3 bad days and then 3 awesome days and then 3 bad. It's been the most roller coaster 2.5 weeks. Baseball last year, there was some ups and downs, but they were much longer. This has just been some whiplash for me.
It's been wild to watch, just going back and forth, up and down.
In general, the highs shouldn't be quite as high as this, and the lows shouldn't be quite as low. We'll see. Hopefully, this doesn't keep up all year. Hopefully, it levels out a little bit more, and we could just avoid some of that back and forth. I tried the Sunday picks yesterday because the baseball game that I planned was in the evening, and so had some time Sunday morning. Apparently, I should have just slept in. Although, again, I tweeted this. Cousin Jared said he made some money yesterday, and that's verified on his BetStamp profile. So whatever I said, he figured it out. Like I said, so just a shout out to Cousin Jared. If y'all want, you can follow him on BetStamp at Cousin Jared. He locks in things based off what I say. He tracks the model and knows the models fairly well. Has a little bit different of an angle than I do. So he was able to make some money off of yesterday. I wasn't. Had some good picks yesterday. Had some bad picks. Had some bad luck. Sean Manaea, just getting destroyed by the Dodgers was surprising. It's always tough when you play an offense like the Dodgers, but Manaea had looked so good.
Man, that offense, you make one mistake and then it just compounds and compounds. And there's no breaks.
Yeah. It's like you can't blindly back the Dodgers at the prices that they're being offered at for the most part. In general, that's probably going to be a losing strategy. And so at some point you're like, well, there's times when it makes sense to fade them, but it's hard to stomach fading that Dodgers offense. I feel like it's almost like in the NFL they always talk about value being on teams like the Jets or whatever. And it's like, man, that's tough. Like there might be, but it's hard to do. It's hard to watch.
It's scary. It is really scary what they're throwing out there every day, especially with some of the pitchers they've got going too. Like there's no.
Right. Their weak pitchers would be, number 3s on any other staff, right? Number 2s on any other staff, right? It's that team's incredible. Well, before we get to today's slate, some reminders. Please hit that like button if you're on YouTube. Also, if you aren't yet, please consider subscribing or following. It's free and the only way to ensure that you don't miss any of the college basketball, MLB, or college football content that this channel provides. Share with a friend if you know others in the game. Hit us up on Twitter or drop a comment if you're on YouTube. We love those and we'll try to respond to as many as we can. 6:10 Eastern, first pitch, Giants at the Brewers. The Brewers in that interesting spot I've talked about a few times here on Mondays, where the lone team playing on Sunday Night Baseball, traveling the next day. The Phillies do play, but they get to stay at home. And that sometimes has an effect on teams, especially if it's earlier in the day. This one's, a 5 o'clock local start, so a little earlier, not a ton. So something to keep an eye on there. Not as bad a travel as we've seen in some situations, but we sometimes see this have an effect on teams because the other team's already there the night before, got a good night's rest. And so the Giants might have a little bit of an edge there. Initially, this was supposed to be Carlos Rodon versus Corbin Burns, and that would have been a fantastic pitching matchup. Instead, it's Sammy Long getting the start. The Giants, though, seem to know how to run these bullpen games, though. They did it a lot last year, and it worked out really well for them. The model says the Brewers should be a minus 179 favorite, and right now I'm seeing this number creep out into the minus 190s or even the minus 200. So that's way too high of a price for me on the Brewers. And on top of that, if there is any of those travel issues, the fact that they didn't get a full night's rest or something the Giants did, affecting them a little sluggish start. Brewers is not decided I want to back at these prices. I still think the Brewers win this game 64% of the time, but that price is just way too steep. You could look Giants a huge plus odds if you like that. I don't think that's a bad angle. Instead, I'm going to go under 7 with a B pick even money. I talked about it yesterday. The Brewers have been an under team most of this season with Burns pitching. The Giants knowing how to run bullpen games. I don't see that changing. It's only a B pick for me because 7's just a low number. It's just. I feel like anytime you get too confident with numbers, these small numbers, you just can't be that confident, right? So I like it. I think under's the right side. I can't give it an A grade being that low of a number, though I kind of see this game playing out a lot like Sunday Night Baseball. And then I think it's going to be good pitching and just not a lot of hitting. Jake, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, I'm not recommending a play here. If anything, it would be the under, but I just don't like 7. 7's real short for me.
Yep.
But I mean, Corbin Burns, great pitcher. Like you said, Giants know how to run these bullpen games, and neither offense is like super duper kind of thing where they're just going to blow people out all the time. So it's more of a defensive type game, and I don't like 7, so I'm not going to play this one.
Yep. Like I said, it's always hesitation for me when you see that 7. It's like I tried it yesterday with Kershaw and Manaea, and that did not work out really well. So hopefully this one goes a little bit better with a number like 7. So B pick for me on the under. Jake is passing on that one. 6:45 Eastern, first pitch. Rockies at the Phillies. Kyle Freeland versus Kyle Gibson. Another battle of the Kyles here. Weather, it'll be about 60 degrees, low 60s to start, upper 50s to finish. Slight breeze out across to left field, but the temperatures being that cold, I think it's going to be more of a factor than the wind. Kyle Freeland, a pitcher I've talked about before, I think he's a pretty solid pitcher for the Rockies. Kyle Gibson for the Phillies, looking good so far this year, looking more like the pitcher he was back in 18 and 19 than the pitcher he was the last couple of years. Last couple of years, not as good. Last year he had a good year results-wise, but the underlying metrics weren't good. This year, it's only 3 starts, but the underlying metrics are also good. So I'm going under 8.5 on this one, even money with an A play. I said it all weekend. I don't trust these Rockies bats on the road. They did put up 6 yesterday, but they scored 9 runs in 3 games at Detroit, and I kind of see the same thing happening here. I think they can get 3-ish runs a game, but I don't think they're going to get more than that. I think they're a much better team offensively at home than on the road. I think the Rockies money line could offer some value. It's hard to know how much, though. Again, the Rockies are one of the rare teams with an extreme home road split. The model thinks the Phillies should only be minus 155. I'm seeing plus 175 for the Rockies. So if you wanted to throw some money on the Rockies on the plus odds, I don't think that's a bad look. It's not one that I think wins. It's just in the long run, I think that's going to provide value. I just think the under's a much better play here. I've got a pick on this under 8.5. I love that it's even money. I think these two pitchers are solid. I like what I've seen from Gibson this year. I was skeptical at the start of the season. He's looked good. And again, I love the 60-degree weather. If there aren't runs early, and I think these pitchers can do well to start off with, the weather's going to get harder and harder for the bats to score, making it easier on these bullpens. I see a low-scoring game here, Jake. I'm going under 8.5, A pick. What do you got for us?
Yeah, I'm with you. I like the under here. Gibson's having a really good year and had a fairly good game last time he played the Rockies, which was his last time out. And you're right. The Rockies bats, I think we saw something crazy happen at the beginning of the year, and I don't think they repeat that. Where they keep that going, like CJ Cron just mashing the ball everywhere. I don't think that happens anymore. And I think the under is a really safe place to play because the Phillies offense isn't that exciting either. So especially at 8.5, like I really like it at even money.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's tough to distinguish between these numbers, but I mean, this to me with these pitchers in this weather should be 8. And if it was 7.5, I would be like, yeah, that makes sense. I don't think they would ever set the line at 7.5. But me just looking at the weather, if it was 7.5 with these pitchers in this weather, I'd be like, sure, that makes sense, and I wouldn't touch it because I wouldn't know what to do with it. So I think 8's a good number. 8.5, I'm like, this is a great number. I don't understand why it's so high.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. I mean, Freeland's ERA is a little deceiving right now, but he's a better pitcher than what he's shown. But I think it should be a really good matchup between both Kyles.
Yep, absolutely. 7:07 Eastern first pitch. Red Sox at the Blue Jays. Nathan Eovaldi versus Jose Barrios. Two pitchers that my numbers like a lot. Both of them are pretty good pitchers. Of course, this one, a little bit of mystery as of now as to who's out for the Red Sox. We know Tanner Houck is one of them. That won't affect this game. It doesn't sound like any of the position players, any of the key bullpen guys for the Red Sox are out, but we really don't know at this point who might be ineligible to play for this one. So we'll know more about that tomorrow. I'm not treating it as anybody of impact, but it could be an extra bullpen arm or two. It sounds like maybe a bench player, so we just really don't know at this time. The model thinks the Blue Jays should be a -139 favorite. Again, if there is anybody extra out, that would make the Blue Jays, in my mind, should be an even bigger favorite. I'm just trusting the model on this one. I'm taking Blue Jays -127 with a B pick. The model thinks there's over a dime of value in this one, so I'm going to trust the model. B pick on the Blue Jays. Jake, what do you got?
Yeah, I love the Blue Jays. I love Barrios. He's a great pitcher. That was a great pickup when they picked him up a few years ago. That offense can be very scary with Vlad. Can just go off and go for 4 home runs anytime he feels like it seems. And I don't trust Boston's offense to be able to keep up. Evaldi's good, but he can also get blown up real quick. So I really trust the Blue Jays here, especially at home, and then especially if anybody just doesn't get to play because of Canada's vaccination rules, like that could really swing things.
Yep, absolutely. 7:45 Eastern first pitch. Mets at the Cardinals. Max Scherzer versus Miles Mikolas. Cold night in St. Louis. We're going to start off in the mid-50s, going to close around 50 degrees. Winds blowing across, so no real wind effect there. Model thinks the Mets should only be a -126 favorite. So if you wanted to look at the Cardinals, I'm seeing prices in the 130s right now. That's not a bad look. It's always scary to fade Scherzer, of course. So instead, I'll go under. It's like we talked about earlier. It's 7. I don't love that number, and it's -120. So I don't love the juice either. B pick for me. I'm trusting this. After yesterday, I'm a little bit scared of the 7s, right? We talked about this earlier, but I'm trusting this one as a weather, as both pitchers are good. I have Mikolas as an above average pitcher, almost a full standard deviation above average. Scherzer obviously is a fantastic pitcher, about 2 standard deviations above average. So both pitchers, one pitcher very good, one pitcher elite. Also just the weather though. So this is a situation where I don't like the 7, but I mean, the ball just does not fly with 50-degree temperatures. And so I think this is a great spot for us. Most of the unders that I've done well on have been either involving the Diamondbacks, right? Because Jared and I talked about the Diamondbacks change pitching wise, or the weather situations. This is a great weather spot. So under 7, I wish I was getting 7.5 if I had to lay this juice, or I wish if I had the 7, I didn't have to lay the juice. So can't make it an A play, only a B play. But I think this is the right spot with these pitchers, the right spot with this weather to go under. Jake, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I'm leaning with you. It's really hard to take anything over wise with Scherzer on the mound like that's, and especially the Mets offense hasn't been very exciting at all this year. They've had a couple games where they've really run it up, but other than that, it's been very abysmal. But and Mikolas has been really impressed me. I had very low expectations for him coming into the year, and he's come out and really shown off. I think this is going to be a really good pitching duel. Please watch it at home. It sounds like it's going to be an absolutely miserable game to be at. Being in the 50s and then no offense, nothing exciting happening. It's going to be rough go. So I recommend staying at home and watching this one because it'll be a lot more comfortable.
Yeah, especially you're still up in Indianapolis. Me being in Texas, 50 degrees, I'm like, that is not baseball weather. But Obviously, people are playing that sort of stuff, and even worse here to start the season. Sometimes April baseball is rough to watch as a fan on these outdoor stadiums. It's like, I don't want to be outside in 50-degree weather, without the 50 degrees in the sun, no wind, maybe, but like sun going down, 50 degrees, I don't want that,
Yeah, the minor league team here runs a special where it's like if it's under 60 at first pitch, you get the next game free.
Right, exactly. That makes a lot of sense, right? Because it's like no one wants to be outside for that. The players got to deal with it, but we don't. We get the choice. We don't have to, right?
We have to pay money to go. They
exactly.
Get paid to be there.
Exactly. 8:05 Eastern first pitch. Astros at the Rangers. Framber Valdez versus Dane Dunning. Framber has had one really good start this year. Has had one really bad start this year, and has one start where he labored and got through it. But I mean, Cousin Jared and I talked about this from the start. Framber is just all over the place. When he's on, he is fantastic, and when he's off, he is scary. Somehow my numbers have Dane Dunning better than Framber. We've talked about this before with Dunning. I just don't see it with him. But here's what I will say about the Rangers. They allowed, I believe, it was 4 runs or something to Oakland all series. Their pitching staff had come into that series just awful, and all of a sudden looks at least competent again. The Astros bats are really struggling. Yesterday's offensive output aside, the model says Astros minus 127, and so right now that would offer no value for either side. It's a tough one for me to look at on the sides because I think the Astros are the better team, but right now the way their bats are going doesn't excite me. It's all going to be about Framber. If good Framber shows up, I think the Astros win this one. If bad Framber shows up, it's to the bullpen, and then I don't know what's going to happen. I'm staying away from the sides. I'm going under 8. I know the Astros went over yesterday, but it was an under game on Friday, and it was an under game on Saturday. The Rangers have mostly been playing under games as well. Their bats not really looking good. I'm only giving it a C pick just because I don't really trust either starter in this game. And depending on who pitches in the bullpen, things could get ugly. So only a C pick, only a lean on the under 8. It is about even money right now. I'd rather have under 8.5, so that way if it lands on 8, we get the win rather than the push. So I don't really love it. I'll just go with a lean under 8. Jake, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I'm actually taking the Astros here. I think they've got enough to get it done, and I really don't like Dane Dunning. He's made it 5 innings once this year, and he's just not going well. It's progressively getting worse. That Mariners game, he struggled so bad. He was walking. It seemed like he was walking every other batter, and he gave up 6 hits. The fact that he only got away with 3 runs was just crazy to me. It should have been a lot more. And so I think the Astros will get to him, and either that or the bullpen has to go long, and that doesn't spell good things for the Rangers. And I hoping good Framber shows up, but I just want medium Framber.
Right.
Give me medium.
Even average Framber is probably okay for the Astros in this one.
Yeah, and I think that's enough to get it done. I mean, the under's probably right, but I would not like to play the total because I don't trust either starter fully to keep me under the 8. But so I go Astros. I think they get this one done.
Yep. And you make a good point with the Rangers bullpen. Entering this last series, I would have said for sure if the Rangers bullpen's prominently involved, take the other team, take the over, right? But I don't. It's tough early in the season, right? We're at that point where it's like we're seeing some stuff and we're like, how much of this is real? How much of the last couple of weeks or last couple of games is real versus the first part? And so trying to synthesize all that is very difficult. But I'm like you, I don't really like Dunning at all. So that's why my under's only a lean, just because I'm very nervous with him being involved. What I did notice last year is that I kind of treat the domes as all the same, but that's not obviously the case. But Globe Life Field, which one they're calling the one that looks like a Home Depot now, right? Versus the ballpark in Arlington, which is Globe Life, whatever the other one is. Yeah, the naming situation here got crazy, but it definitely played more like a pitcher's park, especially than the previous one. The previous park, based off some weird things they had done with concession stands and opening stuff up, there's this wind tunnel that just shot balls out like a cannon, and the new one does not have that, and actually played more like a pitcher's park than a hitter's park. So that's why I'm leaning under, but I'm not really confident based off of kind of like you said, all those reasons. So I'm on the under, just a lean under 8. Jake is on the Astros minus 133. As an Astros fan, of course, I hope you're right. 9:38 Eastern first pitch. Guardians at the Angels. Shane Bieber versus Michael Lorenzen. Kind of a starting pitcher mismatch here for the Guardians in their favor. Weather close to 80 degrees to start with a slight breeze out. About 70 degrees finishing, so a nice night as a fan. No real bump to bats or arms weather-wise, so kind of a neutral environment there. The model thinks the Guardians should be a minus 107 favorite, so I locked in the Angels plus 109. I locked that in as a C pick. I assume this number is going to move towards Anaheim because that's tending to be the way the world goes. Money's been more coming in on Anaheim this year. The Angels are above 500. I don't know what to make of that. They did get to play the Orioles a few times, but they lost 2 of those games, so I don't know what to make of this team whatsoever. Lorenzen, not bad. Obviously, no Shane Bieber. This is just trusting the model because obviously if you just look at starting pitchers, Bieber's the guy you want to back. Just a C pick for me on the Angels. The model says there's value. I don't know. I don't know what to make of either one of these teams, so I'll trust it, but I'm not trusting it a ton, if that makes sense. Jake, what is your take on this one?
Yeah, I don't know what to make of this one. I don't understand who the Angels are or what the Angels are right now. They've got the more flashy names, but it seems like they're the worst team. But I mean, Bieber's incredible. So if I did anything, I would lean the Guardians. But I don't want to make a play on this. I don't trust anything that's happening here. Cleveland's offense can disappear. Like Jose Ramirez can just decide he didn't want to play that game, I guess, and not swing the bat. And like Trout can obviously take over a game whenever. So I don't like this game. It scares me at all angles.
Yeah, I think I had the under Saturday in Baltimore, Anaheim, and I had under 8.5. I think there were 9 runs and Trout hit 2 solo home runs. I'm like, if Trout could just hit 1 solo home run, there you go. The fact he hit 2, you never really know what that guy's going to do. Obviously, this is an interesting one, especially interesting one for me as someone who builds the model because the way the lines move. I can have a winning night and people can have a losing night, or I can have a losing night, people can have a winning night. Just if you're just trusting the model, and that makes it almost impossible or frustrating from my standpoint, because I'm saying Angels plus 109, and I'm taking it specifically because I think there's value at that number, given the model thinks that the Guardians should only be minus 107. But if there's money that moves out towards Anaheim throughout the day, which has happened on more times than not with their games, then let's say this line closes, Angels are minus 110 and the Guardians are even money. Like hypothetically, let's say we end up in that world, then the model would say take the Guardians at even money because they should be valued. So now I've got half the people out there looking at the model, listening to us on the Guardians and half on the Angels. I'm like, well, half of you are going to win and half of you are going to lose, right? and it's so tough with baseball, right? Football's a little bit different. Football, there's fewer games, right? And so it's like, it's not to say there's not value in the number. There's absolutely value in the number. But the numbers don't shift so much where it swings who you should be on 90-some-odd% of the time. Or in baseball, that happens a lot. So in football, it's kind of like you're on this, or basketball, right? Same sort of thing. You're kind of on the right side, and like maybe you win or lose a couple on the fringes from the point or two, and that's valuable. That can swing you from negative to profitable. So always try to get the best number, always shop around for sure. But it's not going to change which side you're on a ton. Whereas in baseball, I swear it happens so many times where the number moves enough where if you're just looking at the model earlier in the day versus later in the day, you're on a different side. And I'm like, I don't know, half people are going to be happy and half of them are going to be sad. And I'm hoping that balances out in the long run and everyone's getting good value. And so it's slow and steady profits, but it makes it tough on games, especially like this, where I feel like Anaheim's got value now, but that's probably going to disappear as the day goes along. That's the way it's been happening so far this season.
Yeah. Typically with the big movements in like your college or football and basketball, you've got some breaking news or something, right? Like there's a reason for it other than people decided they like the Angels, like or whatever, and it just slowly moves the juice around.
Right. Or like what we've seen with Miami, where Miami this year's had a ton of games that's moved 20, 30 cents towards them as the day's gone on. It's like it can totally affect who you're playing. And in the long run, if you're taking the good value, you're looking for arbitrage situations, whatever it may be, it's going to work out. But it's not going to work out on any given night. You're still going to win or lose. Yeah. That one game. It's tougher to take that long-term view. Yeah. With that. Last game of the night here, 9:40 Eastern, first pitch, Dodgers to Diamondbacks. Walker Buehler versus Merrill Kelly. Shockingly, my number has Walker Buehler as only slightly above average. That just surprises me just from my gut feel. I feel like he's better than that.
Yeah, he's had a rough year going so far. Like, I don't know what's going on with him. I don't know if it's just he needed that spring training more or what, but it's not been the typical Walker Buehler so far.
Yeah. Merrill Kelly, a pitcher I've said before on here, I really like Merrill Kelly. He's one of the better pitchers that you might not know about. Hopefully by now hopefully you've heard me talking about how good I think he is and how good I think he is relative to the market. I don't think he's a top 5 pitcher in baseball, but I think he's being priced as if he's a mediocre pitcher, and I think he's very good. So tons of value on Merrill Kelly so far this season. I think that's still true today. The question is, are you bold enough to take the Diamondbacks with huge plus odds, fade a Walker Buehler who hasn't looked as good this year, or are you going to stick with the under? I think those are the only 2 real ways to look at this one. The model says Dodgers minus 179 is the number, and I'm seeing Diamondbacks plus 179. So we're at the point where there might be some value in the Diamondbacks. I kind of think this line's going to move out towards the Dodgers just because the whatever LA type bias seems to exist. People don't think the Diamondbacks are for real. Again, I don't think people are realizing how good Merrill Kelly is. So if this number continues to eke out and you get Diamondbacks plus 180 into the plus 190s, there's some value there. Again, it's always tough, and you have to figure out what type of player you want to be. If you're going to take those dogs, you can't just do it one night. You have to be consistent. Don't take all the dogs, right? But if you're going to be a player who takes this, you can't just one day take a couple dogs because they might both lose. It has to be a consistent spotting of 2 or 3 every night and trying to get down on those. And if that's the type of player you are, I think Diamondbacks are a good option to look. If that's not something you're consistently wanting to do, you can go the way I'm going to go, which is under 8.5. Right now it's minus 106, and it's an A pick for me. The Diamondbacks offense, as we talked about, a little bit better, still not great. Merrill Kelly, I think, has a ton of value. I think this is a low-scoring game. I don't think the Dodgers score 10 runs again like they did yesterday, as good as they are. I think Merrill Kelly can hold them down. Buehler, I still think is a good pitcher, and I still think good enough to hold the Diamondbacks offense in check. The Diamondbacks, as they've scored, most of these runs have been against pitchers who I have below average. Even though my numbers aren't high on Buehler, I still have him as above average. And so I think he's still one of the better pitchers the Diamondbacks will have to face in this recent run of offensive competence. And so I think it's very possible we go back to seeing the Diamondbacks in their old ways of not being able to hit the ball, not being able to score runs. So under 8.5, a pick for me. Jake, what you got for us?
Yeah, I'm playing the under here. I love Merrill Kelly, and I think Walker Buehler is going to find it at some point and just be back to what we know.
And this is the team to find it against, right?
Yeah. In our fantasy league that we have, the little dynasty league, I've had Merrill Kelly every year, and this is the year I've been waiting on. I've loved him for a while, and he's been absolutely amazing so far. And you're right. I don't think the Dodgers put up a huge number back-to-back nights. I want to take the Diamondbacks. I haven't got bold enough to do it yet. But right now I'm playing the under. Maybe later in the day, if those odds move a little higher, I might sprinkle a little bit on it just on the off chance they figure out how to hit Walker Buehler. And because the Dodgers bullpen really isn't that incredible strong. So
which is surprising. They've got some guys they haven't impressed me. Gratterall's given up some runs a few times. Trinan is hurt.
Yeah.
Now
they don't have Jansen anymore.
No Jansen.
Braves. It's I don't know if you can maybe get some luck and get a couple runs, or just make Walker Buehler throw a lot of pitches, not even to get runs, and maybe get to that. Maybe Arizona can pull it out. But I think this is a low scoring game, and so I'm playing the under right now. May add the Diamondbacks money line later on in the day.
And I think kind of what you said makes sense too with the Diamondbacks. If it is a low scoring game, it's more toss up. High scoring game is more of the better team's probably going to win. If lots of teams are scoring because you expect the better team to score more than the other team. If it's a low scoring game, it's kind of one of those like one home run can change it. And you're still more likely for the Dodgers to hit the home run, but the higher variability, I'd rather have those plus odds in that game because I don't want to lay big odds in a oh my gosh, anything can happen type game. Yeah. So I'm like you, I think the Diamondbacks have some value, but yeah, it's scary to do. I'm hoping if you do that, those odds get a little bit higher. But I'm like I want to, but I'm like, I think the under is just the safer play. So I love this under. I love under 8.5.
Yeah.
All right. So recap for me on the A picks: Rockies at Phillies under 8.5 at even money, and Dodgers and Diamondbacks under 8.5 minus 106. Jake, any parting words?
No, just that we're an anti-runs podcast. It seems like we don't want anybody to have offense ever.
Hey, I had one A over pick, and that works. So that they got to retire the A over pick. Yep. So, no, we'll get some over picks in the summer when it warms up, but just not now. For April, maybe a little bit into May. We're gonna be boring baseball podcast here. All right. Well, that's all we have for you today. Thanks for tuning into another episode of Picks with the Professor. Reminder, check out the Google Sheet for model projections, picks, and results. You can find that link at the website, www.pickswiththeprofessor.com. If you haven't done so yet, please click that subscribe button to ensure all the sports betting content provided on this channel is dropped right into your feed. I will see you tomorrow. And until then, remember, you can eat your betting money, but please don't bet your eating money.